The production of a short film came around when Campus Movie Fest started at school here, Georgia Southern. So I was talking to David about it, and the weekend that we had to shoot the film, you were like, oh, I'm going down to Ringgold, Georgia. I used to live there and he lives there. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of dawned on me pretty immediately. I was like, what if we just shot it in Ringgold? And the next 2 days I had a script and we had actors and a location and we were ready to go.
He showed me the script and I was immediately like, wow, this film's gonna be amazing.
The script was called Spectrum, and I had the idea to do a film based on colors for a while. The reason I wanted to do that for a 5-minute film was mainly because of dialogue, because with dialogue you have to have context and there has to be, there has to be something going on. As when you have a silent film using colors, it can mean a whole lot more, and I just feel like we were open to more possibilities by doing that. I wrote the script pretty, it was a pretty generic script and it had few details. The characters were M and F and X ended up being the shadowy character. And the scenes weren't labeled, they were all just said exterior. And it said things like, M creates blue and things like that. But the story was there. The weekend that we were shooting was Founders Weekend at Lula Lake Land Trust, which means it was open for 2 days. And usually, because it's a nonprofit organization that runs Lula Lake, it's only open the first and last Saturday of every month. So we just got really lucky and it was open that weekend. We took a cast of 2, Joe Watts and Ingrid Brindle, and we went down to shoot that weekend.
Yeah, we just kind of picked them and it worked out well.
Yeah.
We were trying to find your average guy.
Yeah.
And Joe worked out perfect for that.
And Ingrid was not only Joe's girlfriend, but she was also a dancer. So she could do the dancing that was mentioned in the script, which ended up being super useful when we were shooting because we need someone that understood dancing who could just do it on the spot, and she was really good at that. And that came as useful, especially when we did the second scene with the most dancing. We tried to choreograph that, if you remember.
Yeah. Our choreography didn't really go that great, so we just let Ingrid kind of lead Joe.
Yeah, and they found something pretty quickly, and they did that a few times, and that's how we got that scene. And there was one shot we wanted to get an aerial view of it, and we were going to get this ladder, but they didn't have the ladder there for us to use. They looked for one, they didn't have one, so we were able to pull up the car. It was Ethan's car. We were able to pull it up to the top of the hill, and I stood on the edge of it. It's like, just go, just do the dancing.
I stood under him and was spotting him.
That whole scene was done right out at the entrance of the land trust. Like if you were to turn the camera in any other direction, you would see a bunch of people in cars. And it was probably more busy than it usually is because it was the Founders Weekend, so they had all these activities going on.
Yeah, on the way to the waterfall, we just kind of found the location for X. We just stumbled upon it. We were walking by and we saw this big rock. We thought, hey, it'd be really cool to shoot X.
For X. It's described in the script as a shadowy figure, and it came out exactly as it was described, which was awesome to see. It felt really good to see that happen. And we did a couple of tests beforehand, as we did with the color effects, where I played around with masking and things like that to see what the color effect would look like. And with X, I tried masking over someone who was filmed and see how that looked. And I didn't think it looked too great. But what I realized is if you put someone in front of a green screen and then just made them black and you let the imperfections of the green screen kind of take over, you get a really cool effect.
Yeah.
So after we shot it, the next day when we were back in Statesboro, you stood on a chair and held up a camera. And I stood in front of it and just kind of did basic motions, and I was just had on a button up, and there was some green in it, I think, and
it caused transparencies in the film.
Yeah, and so it looked like you just had this thing with holes in it, this weird shadowy guy with holes in it. And there's one part where I lift up my hand, and I guess I had my fingers together, and that they're like overlapping, so it looks like he has like some weird fingers. To make sure that we could comp him into whatever shots that we had, we were looking at the shots as we were shooting it, but we also flipped the camera sideways, so we were getting as much of my body as possible.
And then he added this cool smoke effect.
Yeah, and to do that, there are 3 layers that make up X. There's the base layer, which is just a silhouette of me. Then there's a second layer that's like a blurred out version of me, and there's some distortion on that. And then the third layer is one that's very heavily distorted, and it kind of gives this like this weird aura, wispy look to it. There's a lot of symbolism in the film, and X I wanted to leave X up to the viewer to decide what it was, and I felt like there was, it could be evil, seduction, distractions. It could be anything really that the viewer would want it to be. It could be, the inner self, and there are some things that you could take from the film that imply that, especially the way that X is destroyed, how it's very calm.
Yeah.
And he just kind of runs into him and vanishes. It's almost like an illusion, something that the character that came across X created in his mind.
Yeah, we wanted to leave X up to the viewer.
Yeah.
What it meant to them.
The entire film kind of went on that.
Yeah.
The audience's imagination, of course, we provided a lot of visual imagery, but what that meant was really up to the audience to decide.
Yeah.
Like what the dancing meant, what the colors meant. When I wrote the script, I had a good chart of what colors meant in certain cultures and like what colors meant emotionally, and I went on that to decide what colors were going to appear where. To do the actual color effect, it was some pretty simple masking. I would basically make small geometric shapes and have them follow parts of actors, whether it be their hand or their legs, and I would kind of leave a trail behind it so it looked like it was kind of following behind. And that ended up being a pretty easy effect to pull off, but I don't think it comes off very clearly when you're watching it what exactly the effect is. But it looks really nice.
It does.
On camera. Yeah.
The scene with the jacket in the foreground.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, the jacket thing just that was all you. You're just
Yeah.
like, here's what you should do with the jacket. Like, that was you came up with the costume for
Yeah.
him. Like, I had no idea. You're just like, give him a suit. I was like, it worked really well. Like, I like that he's kind of formal in look, and he loosens up as the film goes on. But Ingrid's character, the girl, is really elegant and, has this dress and this flowing hair. It's the contrast just in that works really well. I think the waterfall was the climax of our shoot.
That was amazing.
Like, I didn't really know what to expect. Like, I knew there was a waterfall there, and I'd seen some pictures, but I never got a sense of scale looking at the pictures. And then when we got there, it was like, we looked down this thing, it was this huge waterfall.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
I think on the film you can't even really tell.
Yeah.
Like in the shot where you're panning from the waterfall down to them, the camera's kind of shaky.
Yeah.
And that's because the waterfall is creating all this wind. And it's just blowing right at you.
Like there was so much wind. Like if we had dialogue, we could not have recorded it on location because there was this huge waterfall and it felt massive just looking at it. And I mean, in the shot of the first shot that you see of the waterfall, that pan down to them, I mean, it doesn't look that huge in camera, but it still has a lot of weight to it.
Yeah. We were like a quarter mile away from it.
Probably, yeah.
And it was creating all this wind and there was mist everywhere.
Yeah, I mean.
And it still looked huge from there too.
Yeah, and we were very lucky when we came off the trail where we shot that. There was this heart-shaped rock. I don't know if Ingrid knew that was there because she had been to Lula Lake. I don't know if she knew that heart rock was there, but it was perfect. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen, I think, when shooting anything, is that you're shooting this kind of film and you want this certain scene at this waterfall, and then you turn and there's a heart-shaped rock that you can just sit your actors on. It worked out so well.
It was amazing. The poster picture that we took actually came about when Ingrid asked me to take a picture of her and Joe.
Yeah.
And I just took it on my phone and it turned out like a perfect picture. And I don't think I ever sent them that picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. The last shots that we did were the shots of Joe running.
But the first time, I tried to run alongside Joe,
Right.
but I had my backpack on and the camera in my hands, and Joe had nothing, so I tried to run alongside him.
And it just...
He just took off, and there was no
Yeah.
keeping up with him.
So to fix that, I just kind of stood in the middle of a circle, and Joe ran around me, and I just kind of followed him. And by staying really tight on him, you can't tell that it's a circle. It's a pretty wide circle too.
Yeah.
So, but at the very end of the last take we got of that, Joe slipped.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he was right up by the edge, in which if he were to have fallen, it would have been over by the waterfall.
Yeah, it was a cliff.
Yeah, and that wasn't the first time either.
Yeah, that's the second.
Yeah, there was during the X scene when he runs into X. The first time we did that.
I was filming, and I was following behind him. I just had my eyes on the viewer,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden Joe drops out of shot, and I was just baffled.
So we had 2 days of shooting.
Mm-hmm.
The first day we started around 1, 2,
Yeah.
and we stopped shooting at like 4 or 5. Like we didn't shoot for that long. We just got the first scene and then a few other shots. Like it wasn't much at all. And it was all stuff at the front of the lake, so we didn't even go into the land trust at all. We just kind of stayed at the beginning.
Joe was actually feeling terrible that day.
So we wasn't able to do much movement that day, so we couldn't do the dancing scene then. So we just did as many shots as we could around that. And on the way back, after the shoot, he did throw up while driving. The second day, we got there we started shooting around 1 o'clock, I think.
Yeah.
And we thought it'd be like a 2-hour shoot. Like we thought that we'd fly through it. We didn't get finished until 5.
Yeah.
It was like just after 5. Campus Movie Fest gives you equipment to use. They give you a Lumex G7.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a Lumex G7 which shoots 4K, which was awesome. So there are a handful of shots in the film that are shot in 4K. There's like, I wouldn't say half the film. I'd say about a third of the film is in
Yeah.
4K. We had 2 cards, and one of the cards was filled up, and we couldn't shoot any more scenes in 4K. So what we did is rather than shooting 4K at 24 frames a second, we shot at regular HD 2K at 30 frames a second, which most people would never do. Like that's kind of scary. Like I didn't know how well it would work, but that was our only choice, is the only way that we could continue shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can't tell. I mean, we just brought the 30 frames a second footage down to 24 and you can't tell.
Yeah,
Like,
it was seamless. The location for X on film, you can't tell how high up it is. There's a wide shot of Joe and X
yeah.
where we got way down there and we had to like climb over logs and duck under
Yeah.
everything. And then we got down there and you couldn't even,
Yeah.
it didn't even show how.
Like we still didn't capture the full scale of that location, which it still looks pretty massive and strange in the shots, but
Yeah.
you don't get a sense of height from those shots at all. In between days of shooting and while we were still in Ringgold that night, we did edit the film.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the film cut together that night, and then the next day when we came back, that was kind of a long day, so I think we kind of took a break from editing then. We didn't really edit much. And then the next day we finished the film. We did all the color effects.
Mm-hmm.
I had done a few the night before. But Tuesday we did all the color effects. We did X, and gosh, we started at like 4, and I think
Yeah.
we went till like 11.
Yeah, we were editing late.
Yeah, we just charged through it. It was just like this. And that was all pretty great. And then the music came along Tuesday too. Like we didn't pick any music out before, and Campus Movie Fest gave us this huge library of free stock music, none of which really worked. And I happened to use audio blocks, and I have a license agreement for that. And that morning I found 2 songs that worked particularly well. One of them kind of had this ballad feel, and the other one was this intense string thing that worked perfectly for X. It was exactly what we were looking for.
Mm-hmm. And on Monday, I went through and stabilized the shots.
Right.
Except I did it in HipFilm Pro, but I only had the free trial version. And you cannot export to anything except for YouTube in the free trial.
Yeah.
So after I had stabilized all the shots, we found that out. So then I had to drop all that and do it in Express later
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Yeah, when we shot the film, we had the Lumax camera and a cage system that I bought like a week or two earlier. So the shots were more stable than just holding the camera body.
Definitely.
But then there was still some shake in a couple of shots, actually a good handful of shots.
Yeah.
And by stabilizing that in hit film, we were able to get rid of a lot of that. When it was over and we submitted the film to Campus Movie Fest, we went to the finale event. And what did Spectrum win?
Well, we won 2 silver tripods, the production design,
In special effects.
special effects, and we won the jury award.
Which means we go to nationals.
Yeah.
And we got a clapboard and t-shirts and
He got Creative Cloud
for a year.
for free,
Yeah.
and that's spectacular.
Spectrum was super successful, and it's still kind of surreal the fact that we're going to this national competition.
I can't even describe the feeling
Yeah.
when Spectrum popped up on the projector on the
Yeah.
screen.
And I kind of let out this weird noise, like, oh! And
His speech was I wouldn't say amazing, but
it was something. I was just kind of like, whoa.
to close the speech, he said, "Whoa, man."
And then I just gave him the mic and left. It was a great experience, though. It was amazing.
It was.
Spectrum. It was kind of a surprise experience, I think, the whole thing. I didn't really know what to make of Campus Movie Fest when it started.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy that it ended up being
Yeah.
an award-winning short film and something that is an obvious milestone in both of our filmmaking careers.
Definitely.